they ended up signing Matt McClung instead of him because he was more marketable than this past season. Another friend of mine who was on the Cleveland Cavaliers, or was potentially going to sign with the Cleveland Cavaliers, but they went with someone else, and so he ended up playing for the G League affiliate for the Cavs. In the second block, we talked about the recent the Aces sweeping the Chicago Sky and the dominating performance that was put on by Asia Wilson. And in our last segment, guys, we're going to talk about what it means to be like water and what is the similarities between Bruce Lee and Stephen Curry. But in this segment, guys, I want to talk about the most exciting matchup in the WNBA playoffs so far, and that's been the Lynx and the Sun. But before we get started, if you haven't already, be sure to hit the subscribe button, hit the like button as well, so you can stay up to date on our latest content. Be sure to subscribe to us on Patreon as well. You can do so by going to patreon.com, clicking on the search bar, and typing in GSMC Sports Network, so you can get access to all of our exclusive content that we post daily. And if you'd like to support our network and our company, you can do so by following the link in the ticker below. It's streamelements.com/GSMC Sports Network./tip. Once again, it's streamelements.com/GSMC Sports Network./tip. None of this is possible without you guys, the fans, and we're just so grateful for all the support and the love that you guys show us by tuning into our shows every day. And it's an honor to share my insight and my knowledge of the game with you guys. So, that being said, let's get right into it. Guys, the most exciting match of the playoffs so far, no question, has been the Lynx and the Sun. The Sun won game one in dominating fashion by 30 points. And last night, the Lynx really pulled out a nail-biter. I know the score says they won 82-75, but watching the game, the game was much closer than the score would represent. The Lynx were led by Kayla McBride, who had a phenomenal game. Kayla McBride had 28 points, along with 8 rebounds, followed by Nafisa Collier, who had 26 points and 13 rebounds, followed by Dorka Juhas, who had 6 points and 5 rebounds, and Diamond Miller, who had 5 points and 2 assists. And this is a game where Diamond Miller actually towards the end of the game was regulated to the bench. But this is also a game where Nafisa Collier had back issues in the third quarter, and you could tell that she was struggling, and you could tell that it was difficult for her to get to her spots and to move with fluidity. But this was a grinded out game, and this was a nail biter, and there was a lot of grit that was shown on the Minnesota side, particularly by Nafisa Collier, who in that fourth quarter had 3 offensive rebounds that led to her getting a second chance bucket, and the other 2 times her getting to the free throw line. So, that is what you want to see out of your leader and your star player, and for all intents and purposes, I believe the top 5 player in the WNBA. And followed by Kayla McBride, who really took on the point guard duties, because as we know, this Minnesota team doesn't really have a true point guard. They're more of a point guard by committee. That's how they've been playing this entire season. And like I said, she had 28 points and 8 rebounds, and she did a good job of shooting the ball. She went 6 for 11 from the 3-point line. She was attacking. She was aggressive early and often. And she did a good job of attacking those ball screens. However, what Connecticut did a good job of, when Dorka Juhas would come to set that ball screen for Kayla McBride, they would double that right away. And Connecticut did do a good job of generating a lot of turnovers on Minnesota with that double team off the pick and roll, especially the high pick and roll. And Minnesota didn't make enough adjustments, so they were able to pull out the win. If I'm Connecticut going into Game 3, I'm seeing that, and that's something that I want to continue to do, because Minnesota clearly struggles with that because they don't have a true point guard. They struggle with those double teams off the high pick and roll. But if we look at Connecticut, they were led by DeWanna Bonner, who had 24 points and 5 rebounds and 2 assists, and Alyssa Thomas, who had 26 points, 6 assists and 5 rebounds. 8 rebounds. My apologies. and they both shot quite efficiently. Alyssa Thomas shot 10 for 18, while Joanna Bonner shot 8 for 20. The issue was there wasn't much scoring outside of that, though, and Tiffany Hayes had 6 points. Letitia Heidemann didn't score at all. Carrington only had 5 points. As you know, she was in contention for sixth player of the year, but that was actually won by Alicia Clark yesterday. Nelson Adota only had 2 points coming off the bench, and Rebecca Allen only had she had 10 points as well. So there wasn't much scoring. There wasn't much there wasn't much productivity outside of Dwana Bonner and Alyssa Thomas. So if we combine their scoring matchups, I mean, they had 40 together. They had 50. They had 50 of the 75 points for Connecticut. And frankly, this has been I know they're missing Bree Jones as well, who was a top 10 player in the league with Achilles rehab. And this is part of the reason why I picked Minnesota to win this series going into it, because the lack of depth and scoring by Connecticut. I mean, they have Carrington, who, like I said, who was a candidate for 6th player of the year, but there's just not enough consistent scoring to back up Alyssa Thomas and Dwana Bonner, and you're asking these players to do a lot. Alyssa Thomas already leads the league in triple doubles and set the WNBA record for most triple doubles in a season. You got Dwana Bonner, who for the 5th year in a row is averaging over 20 points. But these are also players who are getting a little up there in age, and that explosiveness isn't as consistent and starts to wane late in the game due to fatigue. But also is waning due to fatigue because you're asking them to do so much over the course of the game. And Connecticut will need to get help from, especially Letitia Heidemann, who, like I said, who not only did she not score, but she only shot the ball twice. And out of your point guard, yes, you want your point guard to facilitate, to run, orchestrate the offense, but it's just so much easier when your point guard is attacking and putting pressure on the defense at all times. And she only had 3 assists as well, which means that she wasn't being aggressive and hunting the paint and pushing tempo. So if you're Connecticut, you need more out of your point guard, and you need more out of Carrington as well, especially leading that charge coming off the bench. But however, due to the playoff formatting for the WNBA, this final game is going to be in Minnesota because the first 2 home games were in Connecticut, and this is why I got a lot of pushback for this, but I picked Minnesota to win this series because of what I just stated about the lack of depth in Connecticut, but also because of the offensive firepower in Minnesota. Mind you, looking at this, they were able to win this game with both their rookies, Diamond Miller and Dorka Yuhas, both not being particularly aggressive and not shooting the ball particularly well. Particularly Diamond Miller, who shot 2 for 8. And like I said, Diamond Miller wasn't even on the court in the final moments of the game. She was replaced by Rachel Banham, the Minnesota the University of Minnesota legend. But Banham played well also. In terms of facilitating, she did a great job of filling the point guard role. She had 5 assists and 2 turnovers, and she didn't shoot the ball well. Normally, she shoots the ball above 33% from the 3-point line. But however, she went 0 for 4 from the 3-point line yesterday. So don't expect to see that too often either. And this is a game where Minnesota didn't shoot the ball particularly well, but they still managed to pull out the win. And this is why I believe that Minnesota will win this game in Connecticut, or will win this game 3 on their home court in Minnesota. So like I said, I got a lot of pushback for that, but I'm sticking with my pick. I'm sticking with Minnesota winning the series in 3 games, just like we predicted on last week. But guys, that's our recap for the WNBA playoff action so far. As you guys know, playoff action resumes on Tuesday, tomorrow, with the Mystics and Liberty and the Wings and the Dream matching up again. we'll have all that coverage for you as well. But in our last segment, guys, we are going to be covering the concept of what it means to be like water. And what are the comparisons between Bruce Lee and Steph Curry? Is there a correlation between the two guys? So guys, stick around. You're not going to miss any of that. We'll be right back.